I'm Drew Olenoff from TechCrunch, and I'm here with my colleague, coworker, Josh Constein. We're talking about a pretty hot topic this week, all of the policy changes and privacy changes, or what we saw as changes for Instagram, which is now, of course, a part of Facebook. There was a lot of back and forth, and just wanted to kind of get to the root of what it was all about and why people got into an uproar. Should they have gotten into an uproar, and where's it gonna go now? So you probably know about Facebook policy and terms of service better than anybody.
Yeah, I pretty much write intensely long reviews whenever they make any change.
Right.
So I know it kind of back and forth.
Right. So can you kind of start at kind of just with Facebook, how they tend to handle terms of service and privacy policies with their users?
Sure. So for the last few years, they've used this site governance system, as they call it, for basically whenever they make a change to their privacy policy or their statement of rights and responsibilities or their data use policy, which is essentially their terms of service. What they do is they propose changes and they put them up there and they say, here's our documents, here's a red line track changes version of everything that we've changed, and they make it pretty clear. You can look at the document. It's a legalese style, very dense document, but at least it shows exactly what's changed. And then they run a short blog post saying, here's what's in this.
Right.
And then they let people comment for 7 days, and after that, if enough comments, if they get 7,000 comments, then that triggers a vote, and after that, if they have another 7 days to vote, all the users, and if more than 300 or if more than 30% of those users vote, then the majority decision is binding.
Okay.
But that never happens. Instead, like around 0.5% of people
Right.
vote, and that means the decision that those people make is taken under advisory, and Facebook can basically do whatever it wants.
Right. So the last vote that came up included changes having to do with Instagram, right?
Exactly. So the last set of proposed changes, there was three. There was three main ones. It was they were going to remove the voting part of the system. Basically, the vote was broken.
Big.
Only 0.5% of people would ever really vote, and so it basically meant that it seemed like Facebook was a democracy. It didn't really work. So
Right.
rather than sort of continue this farce, they decided they wanted to get qualitative feedback from people, see how they actually felt, instead of getting people just to leave blind comments that privacy groups told them to write,
Sure.
I do not want these changes, and instead of actually
And you could see them; they were repeating and copy and pasting.
They weren't good comments. They weren't getting good feedback with the structure, so they wanted to get rid of the vote. Second thing, they wanted to change some stuff around how your preferences work around who can Facebook message you. That was relatively innocuous. And then the last one was that they wanted to be able to share data with their affiliates, and that's Facebook Ireland, Facebook Payments, and Instagram. And basically, that means that Facebook and Instagram could trade data back and forth. Because now Facebook owns Instagram.
Right.
And in the end, that would mean that if Facebook ever wanted to run ads on Instagram, it could use Facebook data about your age, your gender, your interests, your hometown to target those ads so they were more relevant to you.
Right. So that happened. Not enough votes happened, so that those changes went through.
Yep, those changes are now in place.
Okay. And then the second piece of this is Instagram instituting its terms of service update, but the privacy policies didn't change. Can you talk a little bit about, let's talk a little bit about what Instagram actually said was going to happen.
So Instagram followed Facebook changes. Basically, Facebook said it on their side that now we
Right.
can trade data back and forth with Instagram.
Right.
Instagram needed to do the same thing on their own side.
Right.
And so it made a privacy policy and a terms of service policy update to say that they could now share data with Facebook.
Right.
And there's a few other changes in it. Most importantly, that it was going to be able, it wanted to notify users that it could use basically their profile photos
Right.
or their names in ads.
Right. It didn't say they would do it.
No.
It said that they could if they wanted to.
Exactly. And
Okay.
what it certainly didn't say was that they own everyone's photos.
Which is where things spiraled out. Some other publications, some people wrote, and some people were saying, Facebook can now Instagram can now sell my photos, meaning here's $500, we'll take Josh's photo. And that was never the case.
No, that was never what was going on. Basically, we wanted to be able to use photos, specifically like your profile photo, within Instagram to be able to target ads, not sell your photos to an outside service. It wasn't like Instagram was suddenly going to become a stock photo service,
Sure.
like Getty or something, where
Right.
people can come in and pay and just take photos away.
Right.
So but that was misinterpreted in part because Instagram did not do a clear enough job of explaining these changes.
And you wrote about that yesterday.
Yeah. So basically, what happened was they put up they launched this terms of service update, and so everyone who was in the app could see that, or you could go to Instagram's website and see the new policy. But they didn't have a red line track changes version, so it was hard to tell exactly what was new, exactly what was in the old document.
Right.
And their explanation of it, their blog post was like 3 sentences long on what the actual changes were.
Right.
And it was just like, no, like nothing has changed about who owns your photos. That wasn't clear enough. It wasn't descriptive enough. It didn't bust the myths that were going to arise out of this change.
Right.
And Instagram just did a bad job of predicting how users would react to all of the legalese. Right. And as I say in the piece, you always fear what you don't understand.
Correct.
And all that legalese, this super long document, people didn't understand it, and so they jumped to the worst conclusions possible,
Right.
and this led to this massive uproar, and then people said that they were going to quit Instagram. They started trying to take all their photos out, deleting their accounts. Lots of people threatened to do it. A few people actually did it.
Right.
But it caused this massive scandal for Instagram, and generally everyone just sort of trusts them less now, and that's really the end result of this.
Right. Well, we'll get back to like what we think and what you have some really good ideas on what companies can do better. But the other thing, so the selling the photos was horse crap. That wasn't true. But the thing that came out was your photo could be used in an ad for, say, Doritos or for something like that, right? A company that works with and uses Facebook ads. Is that true? That was a worry. So that could have happened.
The legal terms make it possible for Instagram to use your photos as part of advertisements.
Okay.
After the uproar happened, Kevin Systrom, the co-founder of Instagram, came out with a blog post saying that they had no intention of doing that, which was interesting because that's what we were just talking about is how Facebook does ads on Facebook.com.
Correct.
And in the Facebook newsfeed on mobile.
This went back to Beacon.
Yeah.
Like there was an uproar in 2007 about that type of thing being used in ads and how that happens.
They're called sponsored stories. Essentially, let's say you like a page, then Facebook can show a post by that page to one of your friends who doesn't like that page and say, here's a post from this page that your buddy Drew likes.
Right.
And that actually hasn't caused much of an uproar on Facebook.
No.
It's not them using your actual photos, but it's using your face, it's using your name, and so it's relatively similar. And people kind of assumed, well, the only content you really have on Instagram is photos, so that's what they would use. And one day they still might, even though they say they have no plans to do so right now. But just leaving that open and leaving that so open to interpretation is what caused the issue.
Yeah, I mean, that really bugs some people. But the fact that, were you surprised that Kevin came back and wrote the post from himself, or were you expecting it?
No, I was expecting that. Honestly, it's like at that point, the fervor had reached just a complete fever pitch. Like people were really freaking out. People's news feeds, people's Twitter feeds were being filled by these notices. Everyone saying Instagram owns all your photos.
Local news was they were covering it.
Everyone was covering it. And it was at that point, it was like, if you don't address this, it's going to completely spiral out of control.
Right.
And so they tried to come out and fight this, but the problem is, like I said, the apology is never as loud as the outcry. Like it's just not as viral. Like something as crazy as Instagram owns all your photos, that's something that people feel like they have to do a public service to their friends by sharing.
Right.
But
and
like
the other side of it,
not being true, they don't feel like that's important enough to share.
And the other side of it is your kids could be used in an ad for Huggies without you knowing. And that's just kind of weird. So I think those two things, one of them being completely not true and the other being possible, it just blew up. Now, you have some good ideas on, and you've seen enough companies to understand how this works. What should companies do to make these things clear? Things are going to change. People are running businesses. They're going to make money, especially if you're using a free service like Instagram or Facebook. You are not paying money to use it. Therefore, they're going to make money off you somehow.
here's what's changed, here's the old document as well. So
Right.
people can say, oh, that's what's new, that's not new. And then finally, the company should be going to the press before they release these updates and running through it with them and saying,
Right.
here's what's going to happen, we're going to change these things, and here's what it actually means.
Right.
And if those reporters if they're saying like, wait, I don't get it, I don't understand this, do you mean this, and they're jumping to
Then
the
nobody's
conclusions,
gonna get it.
Yeah, exactly. If the reporters don't get it,
Right.
then nobody's going to get it, and
Right.
and the companies need to go back and revise their announcements and make them work better. And then also what that helps is that when the first wave of press comes out about the changes, they're accurate. Like the press is accurate, so you don't get the press jumping to conclusions, leading everyone else to jump to conclusions, and it just turning into this total mess.
No, I think those are good ideas, and a lot of them sound like common sense, but I think they're good. The other thing is, how do we get to a point to get users to recognize and read terms of service? Because self-admittedly, I'll skip over them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll trust Apple and I'll go, you know what, accept. And probably saying that isn't a good thing to say out loud, but for the most part, I don't read all that crap. But how do we get it to a point where do we need a couple more of these uproars before people go, you know what, I'm actually going to take a look at this? Because it seems sometimes that these documents are super long just so users won't read them.
No. That's not why these documents are super long. They're super long because there's a lot of things they have to cover. These companies are dealing with billions of people and billions of dollars, and they really need to make sure that they're legally protected from lawsuits.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that people shouldn't read them, but the fact is that they're not. People are not going to read these documents. Like, let's just be real.
Yeah.
No one's going to wade through the 20-page Facebook statement of rights and responsibilities. Like, people should,
Right.
and some people will. Most people will not.
Right.
So what these companies need to do is they need to understand that fact
Yeah.
and say, how can I still give people an idea of what's changing
Right.
about the service that they know and love and that they
Right.
rely on? How can we make it obvious what's happening to them without having to go through that entire
Right.
document? And that's what these layers of summary and translation are for.
Right.
So you give people, different people, really casual users, just read the summary.
Right.
Slightly more intense users, read the sort of legalese translation.
Right.
Legal eagles and reporters, they can read the documents.
Right.
So if you do it that way, then everyone has an option to find out and research for themselves what these changes mean.
Yeah, it sounds good to me, but it sounds like users be a little more vigilant, watch out, and know that you do have options. I mean, I personally deleted my Instagram account. I didn't feel comfortable. I'm fine, there's options, but I figured out how to do that. Not everybody can do that. And the other side of it is companies think about the users, because that's all you got, right?
And in the end, if I had one piece of advice to users, if you don't want to read the privacy policies or the terms of service changes, that's fine. But if you're going to tweet about it, if you're going to Facebook post telling other people the way that those terms of service work,
You better write it.
please read the real documents, read the translations, read everything, read reputable news sources, and don't jump to conclusions, because otherwise you're spreading misinformation and you're fear-mongering and you're yelling fire in a crowded
And
web service.
it's worse than almost as bad as what the company did in the first place by making it confusing. So there you have it. Just watch out. See, I knew you'd know all about this stuff. You followed closely.
Yeah, we want to help these people, right?
Yes. Thank you very much, Josh.
Cheers.